Hey, hello, howdy, how you doing? Welcome back to Mount&Blade Bannerlord, the extra chromosome-wielding cousin of its predecessor, Warband. Today, instead of living out everyone's D&D fantasy and creating the world's best human fighter that we all pretend we never create every single D&D session, we'll be extending our arms wide open and walking 6 feet to the edge as we sculpt Calradia's newest adventurer, a ranger, known only as Pontificus Antrificus Nomadius Ergonia, or Bane for short. Due to Bane's own personal beliefs, he refuses to become anything more than a mercenary for any kingdom, choosing to focus solely on fame and glory on the battlefield. He will not participate in any tournaments since they're an easy way to farm renown. Instead, all renown and cash will be earned through combat, or questing. He also does not believe in taking nobles as prisoners, as there tends to be only political gain for a kingdom and no real benefit to Bane or his party. The end goal is to capture a city for ourselves and retire on the coastline once the world knows our name. With that, let's get started. The very first thing we did was grab a few peasant recruits and locate some bandits. I purchased a two-handed axe to help get Bane started, but now we have almost no cash, hence the immediate combat. The first battle served simply as a way for us to purchase more food for our party. I have no immediate plans to upgrade my peasants either, since they're incredibly cheap, only costing 2 dinars per day per recruit. This also serves as a great way to level up my archery and riding skills since, as you can tell, we're kinda ass at it. Normally you'd expect a ranger to be an elite archer on the battlefield, but unfortunately, Pontificus Antrificus Nomadius Ergonia has more chromosomes than letters in his name and struggles with basic tasks. Oddly enough, he can name you every type of train that's ever been built in the last 150 years though. The best way I found to ensure some early success is to simply ride up directly on top of the bandits and then launch arrows into them. Through 2 fights, Bane hadn't landed a single kill, but we've also suffered 0 casualties, so I'm gonna take that as a win. There's a simple short bow at the nearby city of Seonon that I'd love to swap for my mountain hunting bow, but unfortunately we're still on food stamps, so we'll either have to fight some more bandits or commit various degrees of tax evasion if we're serious about buying this thing. At this rate, I can keep hunting bandits and slowly level up, or I can take on quests for something like raiding a bandit camp, which not only will allow me to continue fighting, but will also pay me a hell of a lot more than whatever I can manage to loot off the corpses. So, with that, I accepted the quest, located the bandit outpost, and attacked that following night. These raids were a great way to get some easy levels into my archery and athletics. Since most of the enemies are spaced out, you can isolate each camp, wing a few shots at them, and then just send in the infantry to bum rush the remaining fighters. Being the honorable man that he was, Bane agreed to a duel with the bandit camp leader, which actually worked out well in his favor. With the leader taken out, we took the remaining bandits prisoner, collected our loot, and completed the quest, which paid out 3,000 dinars. With some more cash in our pockets, I hit up Penkanak, or however the f you pronounce that, and purchased some barbed arrows, which, if you think about it, kinda sounds a little bit like a war crime, but I'm not gonna question it. While riding to Seonon to purchase that bow from earlier, I ran into a shit ton of mountain bandits. Like, seriously, there's gotta be over 30 of them just idling around over here. I didn't want to risk being taken prisoner and sent off to a P. Diddy camp this early into the run, so I gave them 250 dinars and they let us walk away. Though I did plan to go back and wipe them out as soon as I had my new bow. Now, obviously, there's a few long bows here to look at, and even some woodland bows that I thought about grabbing, but the short bows are what we really need for horseback archery, so I'm just going to stick with those for now. Eventually, when we start getting a little more involved in actual battles, I'll move over to the longbows for things like sieges and all that. For now though, we're perfectly content with a simple short bow. Oh, we also bought a ton of flax and wood to sell since it's so cheap over here. Just a nice little side hustle. We're basically the Gary V of Calradia. No biggie. Naturally, I wanted to try out my new bow and the legendary barbed arrows, so we found a small group of bandits to bully and got to work. With the cash gained from defeating said bandits, Bane purchased a Botanian hobby and replaced his starter horse. Now obviously there's better horses here for us to come back at a later date and grab just like the bows, but this horse is no joke. I mean, just take a look at some of its stats. Since we can't participate in any tournaments to just farm cash and renown, the next best thing we can do are these town quests. That being said, a lot of the quests, well, they suck. So I only really focus on the bandit missions or ones like this, where a group of deserters is extorting the town and need to lay in ambush for them. These are generally pretty easy now since I've started upgrading my troops, but we won't talk about the fact that Bane is practically a demigod who can just tank multiple blades to the chest. I mean, just look at the man. Completing these quests tends to have a great payout as well. I mean, it's not like a tournament where you could earn 20k in a few minutes, but it's better than just relying on fighting mountain bandits. These are easily the quickest combat quests to burn through, and even if they don't pay as much as the bandit camp assaults, the levels we're able to gain from them through combat are helping out immensely. These are the archers we want to be recruiting. What ranger party would be complete without the best archers in the game? I know the Khuzaits are unmatched with their horseback archers, but the Botanian Fion champions are the best archers in the game. So that's who we're going to target. For now though, I've been upgrading my soldiers to focus on skirmishers since they can throw harpoons and javelins at the enemy, while still having an axe and shield to fight in hand-to-hand combat with. If I'm able to find a few more archers like this though, I can start swapping out the skirmishers for pure infantrymen. The big downside for Botania is that food seems to be their scarcity. Hell, we're out here having to pay damn near 30 dinars for a bag of grain, which is ridiculous. This is like California prices. I always like to stock up on food early so that I never have to worry about it again, and luckily for us, the sturgeons in the north specialize in fishing, so we set out in their direction. Well, until I found another deserter quest and scooped that up. Alright, now on to the fish people. Alright, evidently they're on a fish strike. At least in Varcheg. Okay, what the f is going on here? Why are fish selling for 30 dinars in fishing towns? This makes no sense. I guess we'll just rely on grain for now and maybe try again another time. On the bright side, these coastal towns seem to have a ton of the archers I'm looking for, so I've been able to recruit a few dozen of them to our ranks. I'm not gonna lie, I've been very tempted to do some kind of trader arc here because I can buy wood for like 6 to 8 dinars from local towns, and then just go to the sturgeons and sell them at something like a 400% markup. It's just free money. With the cash I made selling hardwood, I turned around and purchased a new horse. This one's considered a war mount instead of a regular mount, so with that, I figured it also needed a better saddle with double the armor. I'm excited to see what kind of damage I can do with this. To be honest, I've never really spec'd into riding before, so I usually just relied on the basic tier 2 horses that you could get, but this time around I think I'm going to go all out and try to get the strongest horse and just see if I can charge through enemy lines with it. Stay tuned. Anyway, I completely forgot to turn in the extortion quest after killing the deserters, so there goes all of our relations with that town, even though we literally did all the work for them. To compensate for that, I accepted a quest to fight 3 bandit parties. This is the lowest payout I've accepted for a quest so far, but I'm more so looking for any way to get clan tier 1 so I can become a mercenary and start actually making a name for myself.
We're just harmless travelers.
The biggest issue with this quest is the location. The bandits need to be within a certain proximity of the town, but this is a high traffic area, so most bandit parties are swallowed up by any of the nobles passing through. This leaves only a few scraps for me, and even then, we have to chase them around like Looney Tunes characters for hours, and if we're lucky enough to catch them, they're usually out of range for the quest. After fighting 3 bandit groups within range, the quest auto-completes, which only pissed me off a little more since why do some of these quests auto-complete but you need to turn in others for effectively doing the same thing? Make it make sense. Anyway, there's a bandit camp nearby, so I started hitting up the nearby towns to try and find someone who would pay me to handle it. When I stumbled onto this guy. He needed manual laborers to work his fields. Since I was already carrying a ton in my party, I offered up some of my student athletes to get the job done for him in return for over 1,000 dinars. Pleasure doing business with you, sir. Since no one seems to care about the bandit camp, I figured I'd abuse it by grabbing another quest to fight bandit parties. If you don't know, bandit groups tend to congregate near the camps, so instead of having to hunt for single groups, we can end up in a fight where there's a chance to pull all 3 parties in one battle. Kinda like this. I will say, these student athlete quests are basically just ransoming off prisoners at a much higher expense. I can sell 13 looters for like 50 dinars, or I can give them to a random farmer for 1,000. We need about 8 renown to hit clan tier 1, and what better way to do that than with a caravan escort quest. It'll pay over 500 dinars a day, which is still a profit of almost half when you take into account the daily wages of my party. On top of that, we'll get to fight in at least 2 battles, which should hopefully be enough to push us over the edge and allow us to become mercenaries. What the f is going on here? She's showing ankle, isn't that illegal? Anyway, off to the escort mission. After 2 rounds of fighting, the caravan was down to 5 men, so we did the noble deed of pushing ahead and taking on a group of raiders waiting to ambush them. This was the 3rd battle in 2 days, but you're not going to catch me complaining. This was huge for me, regardless of what the pay was. I don't know if we're just way more equipped than the raiders or if their strategy of charging directly into our lines just failed them, but we walked away from the 3rd battle without taking a single casualty. Oh, and that battle alone gave us the 8 renown needed to hit clan tier 1. That being said, we still have to wrap up this quest before we start seeing real combat. Until then, we'll just keep fighting these sets of 40 raiders and employing the exact same tactics.
Troops, form, soldier, move! Forward!
This time, however, we'd take 1 whole casualty in the form of a Battanian volunteer. He didn't even die or anything, he's just wounded, but still. With the caravan quest completed, I rode into the nearest city and purchased a destrier horse. Another upgrade in every sense of the word. I also picked up a woodland yew bow. It's leaps and bounds better than the simple short bow, but I can't use it on horseback, so it'll be reserved specifically for raids and sieges. Considering it does almost 20 more damage and fires arrows faster, I'm taking it every time. Well, it's not the biggest contract in the world, but I imagine as I continue to increase my clan tier, the payouts will grow. Regardless, we can just stack influence and get massive payouts for doing something like donating prisoners or taking a castle. Since Britannia is at war with the Sturgeons, it didn't take long for our first taste of combat. Even Seonon was under siege, and eager to earn his paycheck, Bane and company charged in to assist. Even with the numbers advantage, the fight was still tipped in Sturge's favor. I'm having PTSD flashbacks to Hugh Janus' time as a mercenary, but I was determined to get started on the right foot here. With that, and a chance for a massive payout, we attacked. The battle was an absolute bloodbath. Like, just watch that kill counter climb. I don't think I've ever seen one shoot up that quickly in all my hours of Bannerlord. I could see the writing on the wall pretty clearly, so I pulled my men out and retreated inside Seonon. I'll take my chances with the siege defense any day of the week instead of meeting these guys in open combat in the snow. Well, I can't get in because apparently these dipshits sallied out to fight. Luckily though, there's 2 more parties that are arriving with reinforcements, so we jumped back in again. Even with the massive numbers advantage, it's still looking to be a close fight, so I just decided to sim this one. Hey, I'll take it. I don't care if there's some judgment for not charging in, I'll gladly take 9% of the loot and be on my merry way. Turns out even 9% still nets me close to 13k, and that's without selling any of the horses or the food. Speaking of food, that battle alone netted us almost 200 fish. As much as I'd like to sell some of them, I do really enjoy not having to worry about rations during wars. Shortly after defending the city, Bane found himself participating in his first actual siege. and he joined at the perfect time, seeing as they'd just begun their assault. It was truly a now or never push though, as a sturgeon army of over 400 men was already making their way over to the war party. The battle itself was fairly tame. We had no siege equipment and relied on 4 ladders to get our men onto the walls. Being a ranger, Bane hung back and fired arrows at the archers holding the walls while the infantry stormed in. After running out of arrows, I simply swapped over to the axe and pushed up onto the wall with the rest of the men. There were barrels of arrows just lying around up here, so I tried to stay with my bow as much as possible, but obviously close quarters combat favors the axe. These tend to be incredibly lucrative for us though, earning us a share of 19% of the loot, over double what we received in the defense of Seonon. Huh, glad to see my editor's getting in on some action as well. Good for him. I'm not sure how, but not only did we manage to dodge that massive sturgeon army, but so did the remaining forces from the siege. Like, we both just juked around them and managed to get to safety, and on top of that, they didn't even stop to take back the castle. There's like 20 militia defenders there and half of them are injured. Why? They could just walk up to the gates if they wanted, but for some reason, they were way more focused on patrolling the area than actually doing anything useful. Anyway, after making it back to safety, I sold my loot and purchased an even better longbow. It feels like every win is cashing in with these massive gear upgrades, and we're on the verge of snowballing here. Unfortunately, I paused my recording and forgot to start it up again, so I missed showing you the incredible defense of a castle siege. Using the catapults on hand, we were able to destroy both siege towers and the battering ram, forcing Sturgia to retreat. The best part? Well, we were responsible for 44 of the 45 kills during the battle, resulting in us receiving a 94% loot share. Fortunately for all of us, these big dumb dipshits thought it'd be a great idea to try again, so you get to enjoy round 2. Only this time, we don't have any catapults, because for some reason they left Bane in charge of defenses, and I was too busy playing Retro Bowl to realize anything was off. Honestly, I thought we could have won this. I really did. We put up a hell of a fight for not having any siege defenses, and as soon as the gate was breached, I moved over to try and slow down the assault by throwing rocks down from the second floor. And when it looked like we had that portion secured, I turned my focus back to firing arrows at the waves of sturgeons swarming onto the walls. I will say, we did hold the walls until the very end. Until Bane was the last man standing, in fact. Had they not had one final wave to push through them over the top, we likely could have held on. Unfortunately, poor planning was our demise. Seriously though, I do think if we had even one catapult, this defense is successful. So even in the loss, I'm gonna hold my head high knowing we took them down to the wire, even if it meant we were taken prisoner and lost all of our gear. After only 2 days in captivity, Bane broke out and began dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodging his way through bandit and sturgeon parties, until he made his way back to Battanian territory. That didn't stop the sturgeons from pursuing though. With a fresh start at my fingertips, I took a few days to head over to Vlandia-controlled territory and begin recruiting infantrymen from there. I know they have the best crossbowmen, but I'm not sure who has the best infantry, and since I tend to neglect these guys in all my playthroughs, I figured I'd give them a shot to see what they could do for me. I still plan on using the Battanian archers for my lines, but infantry will be exclusively Vlandian soldiers, at least until I get captured again, at which point we'll check out the sturgeons. That being said, these Battanian archers are incredibly expensive to recruit, so I've got to do so sparingly, at least until we string together a few more wins. And what better way to kick that off than by assisting some Battanians in assaulting a siege party? Even with simming the battle, we still earn 9% of the loot, which I'll take every time, considering I'm literally leading an army of Vlandian peasants. Since I don't have a horse anymore, I just grabbed one of the ones we'd won from the battle and slapped that into the inventory. It's no top tier battle mount by any means, but it'll get the job done nonetheless. Shortly after this though, Sturgia and Battania signed a peace treaty, meaning I'll need to find another war to insert myself into if I want to continue to afford a party. I figured I'd give them a few days to see if they were going to target another kingdom, so I grabbed a caravan quest to pass the time. It all kinda worked out since the caravan was already heading to Vlandia, so it just gave me another excuse to continue recruiting the local townsfolk. By the time we'd turned in the quest, we were up to just under 30,000 dinars, almost entirely earned from battling raiders and bandits along the way, and then selling gear at every city we stopped at. It looks like support is just starting to sprout up for Battania to go to war with the Western Empire, so I'm gonna stick around for a few more weeks and see what shit kicks up. Worst case, I'll just end my contract and sign with one of the Empire factions since they're always going to war with each other. To pass the time, I started trading any goods I could find for cheap. Along the way, I swapped out my starter axe for a broadsword. I've never really used a two-handed sword in Bannerlord before, so I'm excited to try this out. I typically always just kept to pole arms or axes since they looked cooler, but here's to trying new things, I guess. Support for war is growing with the Western Empire, so I'm just going to continue biding my time until they pull the trigger on it. Alrighty, not what I was expecting, but honestly this may be the best case scenario. I get my infantry from Vlandia and archers from Battania, so pitting them against each other may be the best outcome for me. With that though, we're about halfway to clan tier 2, so I figured it was about time we'd start building out our companion list. He can't form his own party yet, but I want to have him ready as soon as we hit tier 2.
Right.
Almost as soon as war was declared, I found a Battanian castle being sieged and broke through to help out. This time though, we've got catapults, and we're almost dead even on soldiers, so I really have no idea why the scale is tipped so heavily in their favor. See what I mean? Catapults just make castles impenetrable. It also helps that my men were the ones working them, giving us a clean 83% loot share. I even walked away with a 40,000 dinar helmet. The downside of being a noble hero and not taking any prisoners, well, they just chase you down after you let them walk away. I was so close to the city too. We're outnumbered and they've got stronger soldiers than us, and my only chance here is to pray my archers can break their lines before they reach the infantry. The initial engagement was pretty okay, I guess, but that was about it for us. After seeing most of my infantry depleted, I called for a retreat, leaving another 40 soldiers behind while we escaped to Penkanak. It's shitty to admit, but at the end of the day, I've got over $30,000 worth of loot on me, and I'm not willing to start all over again. To be fair though, I think we did pretty well considering we were up against 2 full cav parties with nothing more than some T2 infantry and a few archers. I just wish the outcome had been different. After spending most of the winter rebuilding my army, a noble by the name of Servic, which I know, I thought the same thing, but yeah, he came up out of nowhere to try and fight me, and again, I just spent a month recruiting a shit ton of peasants to my ranks, so it's not like we're really battle ready yet. That being said, mama ain't raised no bitch, so let's get to it. We have 78 archers to 50 infantrymen, so I'm not expecting this to go well at all. My only hope is that, again, the archers can do enough damage before the cav gets here, and that salvages this fight. Don't ask me how we won this because I have absolutely no clue. I'm chalking all of it up to the fact that my archers accounted for well over half of the kills in the fight, but I also think taking out Servic during the initial charge is what caused the enemy to rout. Regardless, I'll take that win. There's still about 40 men left, and I didn't get any loot from that initial fight, so I decided to re-engage to chase down the remaining men and take what I could carry. After driving the enemy to the river and slaughtering the rest, we looted their remains, walking away with several horses and more armor to sell, netting us 45,000 dinars. That being said, our daily wages are close to 1,000 dinars per day due to how much money the archers make. It's incredibly expensive, so we'll need to find a way to address that in the future. Looks like the first steward badge reduces wage costs, so I threw a level into that and started diversifying my food, since that's literally just what the game recommends. Well, shit. I feel like we just got our party up to speed, and now we're back to nothing. After checking again and realizing that Britannia tends to take the pacifist approach, Bane ended his mercenary contract with them and set out east in search of a new kingdom to join up with. Looks like the northern and western empires are at war, but when I spoke with reps from the north, they offered me a worse rate than the Britannians did. And when I spoke to the west, their offer was even lower at 120. What a joke. Since the Southern Empire isn't even hiring, that leaves the Sturgeons, Azerites, and Khuzaits. I chose to visit the Khuzaits first since I really don't want to have to go up against them in combat. And speak of the devil, I don't know about becoming a vassal, but at least there's mutual interest here. They offered me 130 per influence, which is right in between what the Empire was offering me, so not amazing value, but at least we'll get to team up with Kalradia's version of Genghis Khan. Now that we're on the Khuzaits side, the first thing we did was recruit a shit ton of nomads. The OG Bannerlord players already know, but if you're new, you'll see why in a second. I also purchased a new war bow, which is way better in every stat than my previous short bow. With my setup complete, I joined Bagai's army in the siege for Odriza Castle. Dude, come on, just let me have one thing. I have a horrible feeling about this, but at least it's a siege. This just seemed like a horrible idea, so after several days of sieging, Bane just dipped out and started hunting down nearby noble parties.
If you please, stop. If you please. Now then.
After 3 successful battles, I returned to Khuzait territory to sell my gear and upgrade my troops. With daily wages surpassing 1,300 per day, which is just insane, we're about to become unstoppable in open field combat. It's nuts to me that these guys are still going strong, that somehow they've turned the tide and wiped out half of the enemy forces that were defending this place. Seems like the perfect time to tag along. Obviously, since they have catapults, the siege tower was destroyed almost immediately. Good thing we don't have a need for it though, since we've already blown a hole in the right side of the wall, so we just need to brute force our way through here. Bane simply hung back like we'd done every other siege and peppered the defenders with arrows. Once I burned through everything in my quiver, I just started pulling arrows out of random debris and firing them back at the enemy. With the remaining enemies barricaded in the keep, the battle was won. We'd accounted for almost half of the kills in the battle, with Bane taking credit for 25 of them. Not bad for just sitting back with a bow. With the city of Onira under our control, all that's left to do now is hunt down the remaining nobles. Would you like to see why we're so unstoppable in open field combat? Well, allow me to demonstrate the power of horseback archers.
Sergeants, take command! Mounted archers!
These guys swarm enemies. We've got close to 50 of them, and oh my god, are they unstoppable. As long as they stay moving, they manipulate enemy lines, cause absolute chaos on the battlefield, and above all else, hit their shots. This was mostly done without any interaction between my archers and infantry, almost solely relying on horseback archers versus a noble party. Just wait till we get some actual cav and upgrade these guys a bit. Remember, they're just tier 2 soldiers at this point. Well, we've been at peace now for several days, long enough for me to ride all the way back to Vlandia, recruit like 60 new soldiers, and then ride all the way back, so I think it's time to move on. And what better kingdom to go to than the Northern Empire? They're currently still at war with the West, and are offering 150 dinars per contract, so we're a bright purple now. Immediately after joining, I sacrificed 41 soldiers to break through a siege in order to defend a random northern castle. What better way to make a good scene in this war than with an immediate defense of a meaningless castle when we're already outnumbered 2 to 1. I felt good going into the battle, but it's another thing entirely to account for 180 of the 226 kills during the attack. What's even crazier is that there's 485 prisoners for us to take on. Just insane, considering that's over double the amount of casualties they took in the siege. If you're asking why I'm selling out for these sieges, well, that's why right there. Outside of these fights, I tried to find any smaller noble parties and then take them down in open areas where I could utilize my archers. It was a slow burn for several minutes while we tried to figure out how to navigate this, but as soon as the infantry clashed, we just kind of steamrolled them.
Charge!
Halt. Before we fight,
Obviously, now that we have cash, it's time for a better bow. Actually, just upgrades across the board.
Your help was...
Alright, I know we've had some pretty decent victories, but I don't think I can save that. That's 1,200 soldiers sieging a castle of 120 men. They're literally outnumbered 10 to 1. Even if I get all of my men in there, we're still outnumbered 4 to 1. Just not a winnable fight right now. On the bright side, it was because of this siege that I realized I'm almost clan tier level 3, and I could have had my companion out roaming the battlefield this entire time, so oops. Speaking of a massive western army, well, they're sieging Diathma now. Only this time, we're getting involved. 1600 versus 700. I like those odds. This is the largest battle of the playthrough so far, and admittedly, I was a bit nervous. Most of my party is comprised of cavalry, and that doesn't tend to work well when you're confined to city walls. That being said, we've got catapults, so the plan is, well, it's the same. Take out the enemy siege weapons, and then pray we can hold them off long enough for them to lose interest. There isn't much that I can say that'll do this justice, so it's better to just show you how this all went. Honestly, the battle was over when we lost the gate, but I think we put up one hell of a fight trying to retake the courtyard. Even when they made a push to the right wall and forced us to fight on two fronts, it was just a slow suffocation that you knew what was going to happen as soon as they breached, and there was really nothing you could do about it. All in all, we killed just under 1,000 men, with Bane accounting for over 120 of those kills. Sadly, none of that matters because we have to rot in a dungeon. I'd be lying if I said I was optimistic after escaping from the dungeons. It's a huge blow to morale when you have to start completely from scratch, which is exactly where we're back to. At this point, I kinda just stopped giving a shit about which troops I recruited, and my army primarily consisted of Imperial soldiers with a few dozen nomads to turn into archery cav. And what better way to train up these recruits than with a castle defense? In all honesty, I probably would have skipped this one if my companion wasn't already in there, but this seemed like a great opportunity to 1, get a win, and 2, upgrade my troops, and 3, earn some cash. Are you kidding me? What? God, this game hates me, I swear. Well, let's just get this over with. Step 1, find a catapult. Step 2, destroy siege tower. Step 3, destroy battering ram. Alright, at least now they'll have to brute force their way in. If we can just keep them confined to the gate hallway, we may have a chance here. I'm not holding out much hope though, but with all of them just standing around, I should be able to pick off at least 100 men. I have no idea how we pulled this off. But holy shit, we just pushed back 1,400 men. Of these 673 kills, Bane accounted for 269 of them. I wish there was a breakdown between how many were from the catapults and boulders and how many were from his bow, because holy shit did we put in work. It may be a little boring of a view, especially considering the battle was almost 20 minutes long, but good god was that electrifying. As I watched our reinforcement bar deplete, I was just praying that we could kill enough to force a rout, and it looks like we did just that. This has to be the largest deficit I've ever dug myself out of, and I owe it all to being a f***ing ranger. 617 prisoners. That's unheard of. This armor has a value of 331,000 dinars. Obviously we can't sell it for that, but god damn that's an expensive chestplate. In total, it took 3 different cities to sell all of the loot we'd gained from the battle. When I finally sold the chestplate armor for 70k, I had to overspend in order to earn any money from it, so I bought these legendary piercing arrows. They do 7 damage instead of 4, and hold 3 more arrows in a stack. I also bought a noble longbow, which does a shit ton more damage than my other longbow, and even with all of that, I still walked away with 124,000 dinars, and some of the best gear in the game. Now at bow level 226, I unlocked a trait which allows me to use any bow on horseback, meaning I no longer have a need for my short bow. It served me well, but the longbow just does way more damage. We'll have to try it out later though. For now, it's another siege defense. Come to think of it, this entire character's arc has just been he gets hired on and then defends anything he can get into. And for the most part, it's worked. Since we only have 1 catapult and it can't hit the battering ram, I bided my time taking out any of the archers in my range while I waited for them to break down the main gate. This was going to be a hell of a fight, but the end goal is still the same. Kill as many as possible and force a rout before they breach the courtyard. Now I couldn't see much of what was going on either wall, but I could hear the screams and swords clashing. I just assumed they'd finally either gotten up the ladders or had some hidden siege towers that I completely missed, so I began making my way over. That's basically exactly what was happening though, was both sides got some ladders up and were fighting for control of the walls. Luckily, I'd made it over just in time for the fighting to start and was able to drop a few of the attackers as they climbed the ladders. With the left wall and the main gate successfully defended, the Western Empire ordered a retreat, and once again, we successfully defended another castle. At this point, I'm almost clan tier 4, so I recruited 2 more companions. I don't really give a shit about their backstory or anything like that, I just need them to help me with my final plan. See, a lot has changed in Calradi over the past 3.5 years. Pontificus Antrivicus Nomadius Argonia has killed damn near 700 men. He's becoming weary of combat and longs for a place to call his own. Also, this script is almost 7,000 words already, and it's like 4 AM, and I want to go to bed, but I want to wrap this up first. So, we have a list of things to accomplish here. Step 1, reach clan tier 4. Step 2, have 3 companions running their own party. Step 3, max out their parties. Step 4, target a city to siege. Step 5, siege city, and step 6, profit. Seems easy enough. Oh, and what if I told you we're doing the sieging for once instead of hiding behind the walls? I even got to use my new sword once I ran out of arrows. All in all, a solid siege. While leaving, I noticed an army of 1,200 men making their way over to retake the castle, and naturally, I ran right back in to defend it. Only this time, something odd happened. When the rest of the army came to join in the defense, my game paused but didn't give me an option for anything, so it's just kind of stuck here. Okay, a reload seems to have fixed it. Thank God, crisis averted. Anyway, I think this might be the largest battle of the playthrough, consisting of just over 2,000 men. It just has to be a castle siege, of course. Alright, let's do this. Talk about an easy victory. It feels like you're able to destroy all of their siege equipment, you just kinda win. Though, that can't be entirely the case because we just partook in a 20-minute battle where they attempted to just brute force their way in without any equipment. Honestly, this was kind of a letdown. We only killed like 100 of their men out of the 1,200. I don't know, I was just expecting more. That being said, we did get to chase down what was left of the army and wipe them off the map, which was satisfying. We're about 270 renown away from clan tier 4, but these battles are giving me insane amounts now, so it should only take a few more weeks before we get there. This was actually much easier than I was anticipating it being, and after only a couple simulated battles and the successful siege of Tile, I think that's how you say that? Anyway, we hit clan tier level 4. Speaking of the siege, here's some of the highlights of that. I gotta say, I'm having a lot of fun relying on archery and then just swapping over with the two-handed weapon when I inevitably run out of arrows. With that though, I ended my contract with the Northern Kingdom and gave almost all of my best soldiers to the 2 other companions before running around to recruit some more men. Since I couldn't make my own kingdom, I joined the Southern Empire for my final push, taking Odriza Castle.
It's take command, archers!
As soon as we took it, I used my influence to toss it my way, and then immediately left the kingdom. With a home to rest him, this is where Pontificus, Antrivicus, Nomadius, Ergonia shall retire for now. In total, he slaughtered more than 800 men, including 8 heroes. Over the course of 4 years, we managed to get his bow skill up to 235. To be honest, I thought it would have been higher, but that's still pretty dope. All in all, this was a giant change of pace for me, and one that I've really enjoyed. This was the first time I've ever put any effort into archery in Bannerlord, and riding as well, so it was really cool to just see how much of the game changes with a different combat focus. With that though, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I appreciate you all, stay safe, and thanks for stopping by.